Hi, welcome back to Barry's Workshop. Today I'm going to use a single tool, this Skew Chisel, to find the mallet that's hidden in this log. Come join me at the lathe. The tool that I'm using for this project is a 1-inch Skew Chisel. It's actually from a kit. It's a M2 high-speed steel and a slightly curved ground with a little bit of a flat near the toe. Something akin to a laser grind. Maybe not perfectly ground, but in that ballpark. I started by putting the log directly on the lathe and getting it balanced, and the first step is to remove the bark and try to get it into a bit of a cylinder shape. Now this is the process that most people would use a spindle roughing gouge. I actually think the Skew Chisel works about as well as a spindle roughing gouge for this step. The pieces of bark actually come off a little bit smaller and not so many big chunks flying around. So here I'm switching to a peeling cut, which is a very quick way to remove material. And notice that this is a bevel supported cut, so you find the edge and pull back on the handle to engage the cutting edge. This is not a scraping cut. Now this is cutting directly into side grain, so you don't want to go straight into it with a flat edge, but since it's got a curved cutting edge, I'm able to engage just the tip. And also my lathe is a bit underpowered, so I'm making several small cuts to avoid bogging it down. One thing you need to be careful about when you're using firewood or other rough lumber is to be on the lookout for defects, particularly ones that could damage your piece or maybe even be a safety hazard. Here I've got some cracks that I'm keeping an eye on. At this point I'm not totally sure that I'm going to be able to use this piece because those cracks in the handle side are actually pretty deep. So I'm slowly removing material to see if I can turn away those cracks. And here I've decided that that end is not secure enough to continue. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off a couple of inches of this. Now that I've cut off the end, the cracks are still there, but they don't go all the way to the center. So here I'm mounting the piece a little bit off of the original center so that I can turn away those cracks. And you can see it's running off center here, but pretty quickly I can true it back up. And once I've got it trued up to the new center, I'll stop and make sure that I've turned away those cracks as much as I can. So the planing cut is good for going downhill, but that shoulder of the mallet is in the way, so I go back to some peeling cut to remove that material. And it looks like I was able to get rid of almost all of those cracks. Since it looks like I will be able to use this piece after all, I'll go ahead and start shaping up the head of the mallet. And here I found another challenge that showed up from using firewood, and that is there's some knots. Now, knots themselves aren't a problem, this is just a mallet, but they have some loose pieces and I don't want them chipping off when I'm using it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this down to a size that allows me to get rid of the loose parts of the knot. When you're working with rough lumber, sometimes you need to adjust the plan a little bit to accommodate the wood. And then I'll switch and start working on the shape of the handle. Of all the things you can do with a Skew Chisel, I still find bead edges to be the most challenging. It's just so easy to get a catch. So I'm approaching these very carefully, taking off little bits at a time, almost painfully slow. So once I've got the bead at the base of the handle made, I can start working on the shape of the handle itself. And it's really just some cove cuts with a more gradual shape to it. And there's something about making cove cuts with a Skew Chisel that I really enjoy for some reason. But that would be pretty slow to do here, so I'm going to do some more peel cuts to get rid of some more material. And once that material is out of the way, I can go back to making those fun little coves. There is a limit to the shape of coves which you can make with a Skew Chisel, particularly how tight a radius you can make, but for this application, they're not really tight radiuses and they're really not a problem for the skew. And I'm going back and forth a lot, trying to always be going downhill, which is from outside to the inside in spindle mode. And I'm moving very slowly here, making a lot of small cuts, but they're turning out very, very smooth because of this steep cutting angle. And the head of the mallet is getting in the way of this cut just a little bit. And at this point, the handle's starting to take its final shape. Just work on the last little few details, make sure it feels all right. I want to make sure that the detail at the bottom end matches the detail at the top. And at this point, the handle's pretty well finished. I'm going to start working on cleaning up the head. This outer bead edge is one of those things that continues to give me trouble, so I'm trying to take that as slowly as I can. I had to resharpen several times during this project. When you realize it's not making the cut and you find yourself wanting to dig in a little bit to get it to cut, it's time to go sharpen. And of course, right after that, I get a nice catch. And here's the fun challenge of trying to remove the mark from the catch without creating another catch and leaving another mark. And if I'm not careful, that will lead us with a very small mallet. But I think I got lucky on this one. It's still going to be usable when I'm done. I'm going and sand it a little bit. Really, I'm just getting the high spots. I don't want to give it a too smooth of a surface. I just want to clean up the rough edges before I put on some finish. And this is a combination of boiled linseed oil and varnish diluted with some mineral spirits. Which I think looks really good with this oak. So I was able to find the mallet that was hidden in that firewood. I think this turned out really good. It's got a nice comfortable handle and it's well balanced. Also, there are a couple of knots and some dark grain to give it visual interest. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. I did confirm that the Skew Chisel is a very versatile wood turning tool, particularly for spindle mode turning, where you're turning between centers and you have lengthwise grain orientation. I also confirmed that I still need practice. These outer bead edges were giving me a little trouble. I had a couple of run backs. I was able to clean it up, but I'm going to keep practicing until I can do that more consistently. So I hope you enjoyed watching me make this mallet. If you have any questions or comments, please place those in the section below. Also click that like button. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate you watching. See you next time. Take care.